Have you ever faced a situation in the markets where you're debating whether to take a trade or not? You've done your analysis, you've picked out a possible opportunity, but there's some sort of issue with the situation that makes you rethink whether it will end up profitable or not. Then you start running out of time, the opportunity's fading away, and you end up just having to make a rash decision one way or another. Either you rush a trade entry last minute under pressure, or you leave the opportunity and don't open a trade. And in either case, you usually end up regretting it anyway, right? So this is a really common thing for traders. Even from our members, one of the most typical phrases I'll see in a trade journal is, I didn't know whether to go for this because ... insert reason. So let's discuss why this happens, and then I'm going to give you some practical solutions to solve this problem and put you out of this misery. But first, it's time to play a game.
You will be playing red light, green light.
Okay, so it's not quite red light, green light, more like red card, green card, and no one's going to die. So here's how it works. You're going to get dealt one card at a time, and for each card, you're going to decide whether you want to place a bet and how much to bet on it. Your starting capital will be £1,000, but once that money's gone, there isn't any more, so you have to bet wisely. Now, what you get to see on the card is a symbol and a ratio. The ratio tells you how much you lose if you flip the card over and it's red, or how much you win if you flip the card over and it's green. Each symbol has its own probability of it being green or red. For example, one of the symbols might be a 50% chance of green, another might be a 40% chance of green, but you can't do an Allen and start using card counting because I have an unlimited supply of cards, so those tactics just won't work. So when you get dealt a card, you need to decide whether you want to place a bet or not based on the ratio and what you think the probability might be. Oh, and you only have 3 seconds to make a decision. Got it? Good, let's play. Here's your first card. Are you taking the bet? It's red, a loss. Next card, are you taking the bet? It's red, a loss. Next card, similar to the first one. Are you taking the bet? It's green, a win. Next card, similar to the second one. Are you taking the bet? It's a loss. Okay, let's stop there. How did you do? Let me know in the comments section. Also, hit the like button if you like these little things we do to try and make it more interesting. Now, maybe you made a profit, but more than likely you made a loss. Either way, it doesn't really matter. What you probably realized already is that each decision, it was just a gamble. Even if one of the symbols did have a high enough probability of hitting green for it to be profitable, you wouldn't know which symbol it was, so it's not going to help you. So let's play again, but this time, I'm going to help you, okay? You know that triangle system? I tested that for 10,000 cards, and 70% of them came up green. So we can estimate that the symbol is weighted that way and the probability of it being green is about 70%, okay? 70% chance of winning. Don't tell anyone, right? Ready to play again? Good, here's your card. Are you taking the bet? Red card, it's a loss. Here's another. Are you taking the bet? Red card, it's a loss. One more. Are you taking the bet? Red card, it's a loss. Right, what's going on? I told you there was 70% probability of a green card, yet we've just had 3 losses in a row. Does that mean the probability is wrong? No, this is just a case of the law of small numbers. For each individual card, we don't actually know if it's going to win or lose, even for a few cards like we just had. It's only if you keep playing over time that you'll start seeing it getting closer to being 70% green and 30% red. Remember, I tested that over 10,000 cards. So based on that, if you get dealt a triangle card, does it make any sense to try and figure out if it's going to be a green card or a red card? No, you'd have no way of knowing. It's a gamble. The only way you know you can succeed if you know the probability of that card is if you keep betting on triangle every time it comes up. Then your winnings over time will exceed your losses and you'll make money overall. So I think you can see where I'm going with all of this, but there is more to it than just that. So let's switch our focus back to our trading. Now, imagine the card game represents the price movements we see in the markets, and the triangle system is an opportunity that you identify according to your system. You've tested that system and you know that overall it's profitable. So each time you see that opportunity, you should go for it. In other words, we can divide this process into 2 broad phases. We have the action phase and the reflection phase. Action is what happens when you're trading. You're doing your analysis according to your system, and when the predetermined criteria emerges that shows you that this is an opportunity, you act by taking a trade. Reflection, on the other hand, is what you do after the trade. You look at the trade you took and you ask yourself if you stuck to your system or not. If you did, that's great. If you didn't, you either need to tweak your system or work on being better able to stick with it. And only after you've accumulated many trades can you go through the other type of reflection, which is to look at the trades that were taken according to your system and see if the results are profitable or if they can be improved in any way. Perhaps the risk is too high, maybe the returns are too low, maybe it's not consistent or dependable enough. That's all stuff that's done in the reflection stage. So if we think back to the red card, green card game, the reflection stage is what allowed us to figure out that the triangle symbol had a 70% probability of being green. But when the cards are being dealt, you should just be asking yourself one thing, which is, does this symbol match what I'm looking for? And this brings us back to the problem we discussed at the start of the video. You see, when you're deciding if a trade is going to be profitable or not, and therefore whether you should trade it or not, this is breaking the cardinal rule, which is that you can't act and reflect at the same time. Firstly, by doing this, you end up creating too much friction for taking action. You put yourself in paralysis by analysis because there are too many uncertainties and too many things to consider. You lose all the conviction and the confidence that you should have to be able to execute a trade to the best of your ability. And secondly, it's just like the card game. You can't figure out on an individual trade by trade basis what that outcome of the trade is going to be, because what happens next is entirely out of your control. You can only have an estimate of the probability that would play out over time if you took that sort of opportunity again and again, but not each individual one. So those 2 points are sort of like creating a double whammy for you, because on one hand, you're harming your ability to trade at your very best because you don't have the level of conviction that you should. And on the other hand, regardless of what choice you make, it's going to be a gamble anyway because you're deciding in an isolated situation. We all know that success in trading comes from doing things consistently, and the best way to do that is to have a well-defined system that you stick to and execute on regardless. So to wrap this up, let me give you some practical steps that you need to follow if you want to overcome this issue and perform better with your trading. You need to separate action and reflection. So the first step is to have a well-defined system that you can follow consistently. If you haven't got one yet, that's what you should be working towards. Even if it's not profitable, that's okay. That's something you can work on in the reflection stage. You can assess the data, look at your trading, and see how you improve it and make it more profitable. Then you do your analysis according to your system, and when faced with a potential opportunity, you shouldn't be asking yourself, will this be profitable? You should be asking yourself, is this an opportunity according to my system? If it is an opportunity, you should enter the trade using whatever process you use for deciding the position size, stop loss, and so on. You also should execute the trade management according to your system as well, because that's just as important as the entry. And if the answer is that you don't know if it's an opportunity according to your system, if there's some sort of factor that's throwing you off, then don't open the trade. We don't want to be acting and reflecting at the same time. Instead, take note of the factor that you were unsure about and move on. Then in your reflection stage later on, you'll test that factor to see if it's fine to take those trades or not. Or sometimes just looking at it with fresh eyes without being in the heat of the moment will give you the answer straight away anyway. Then you'll know in future, when faced with that situation again, you can act without having to reflect at the same time. Then in your reflection stage, for each trade you want to go back over it and see if it fits your system. If it doesn't, see if there's something you're picking up on that needs to be included in your system from that point onwards, or simply put together a plan for how you can stick to your system better in future. Checklists help, more practice helps. Then, as you accumulate trades, you can go through an optimization session periodically to improve the system, improve the profitability, the risk side, or various other parts that are meaningful to how good that system is. I'd recommend every few months or monthly if you're very active with your trading. It's up to you and how many trades you have, but you need to have a decent sample size before you assess how the system's performing. In the end, in any skill, the high-level performers are people whose execution of the skill is instinctive but not impulsive. And allowing yourself to just be able to act in the moment like that will come when you're well prepared enough to be instinctive. But if you act and reflect at the same time, you're only going to end up with decisions that are impulsive.